as we go, it really comes from indigenous practices, from indigenous peoples in the United States and Canada, and from the Maori tribes. And it is the practice of people coming together. The way it is generally done now, it's with a trained facilitator. And it will be the harmed party, the person who committed the harm, and sometimes a representative or more representatives of the community to talk about the experience of the harm and try to make it right. The notion is to sort of restore things to where they were before. Of course, that is in a sense artificial because you can't bring people back, you can't take things away. But in the instance that I wrote about, it really did restore a sort of sense of calm to the son of the victim. And one of the beautiful things that he said during the course of the conversation was the hurt will never go away, but the hate can. And for him, it was very much about forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't seem to be a prerequisite to restorative justice practices, but often it is the result of sitting down together, apology and forgiveness. Other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
Where, if anywhere, do you see a limit on the kinds of crimes that restorative justice apply?
I'm not sure that I see a limit on the kinds of crimes. I think it's really a question of the postures of the people involved. The case that I wrote about was one in which the person charged was truly very sorry, and the person who lost his father was truly ready to forgive. So, look, I think if it can happen in murder, it can happen in any case. But then there are kinds of crimes, crimes against children, that sort of thing, where perhaps it's not appropriate until someone is much older. But you do hear about people who are victimized as children who later in life want to face their abuser, to have a conversation. So I think that there's a lot of possibility, but it has to be done very carefully. And the data is
you can pass in, so some of these things we'll be able to address in our podcast afterwards.
All right, 2 more questions or thoughts? Yes.
All right, yeah, I was just going to ask, going on with what you said, my name's Catherine.
I also like the name Catherine.
How would you distinguish between situations where restorative justice is inappropriate? Like, would there be a process in terms of vetting the receptiveness of the perpetrator and the victim to that process? Or?
Yeah, there's a very successful program, small program in Brooklyn and the Bronx called Contextualizes, where folks are willing to have that conversation in a way that is safe and productive and not re-traumatizing and all of that. So I do think, yes, that there need to be systems. I mean, where we see it happen now is kind of ad hoc. You'll see in a courtroom, someone at sentencing will approach the rail, a person who's been victimized, and will speak to the person who's charged. But they're often speaking to the back of their head. It's not the same as having a real conversation. So I think that as the United States starts to scale these kind of programs, that there are going to have to be systems put in place for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what's your opinion on mandatory minimum.
My opinion on mandatory minimums. I mean, my opinion on mandatory anything is not positive. I think that we need to be very thoughtful about how we change policies, because we don't necessarily always think through the collateral consequences. There's a report out this week that is data from 2000 to 2016 nationwide that suggests that while the front end of the criminal justice system is reducing the cases that come in, and also racial disparities are decreasing, that it looks like over that 16-year period, there may have been an increase in disparity in sentence lengths. So we don't know why that is, and of course national data aggregates information from states that are wildly different from a legislative standpoint, but it is possible that some of the reforms that were put in at the front end of the system led to some kind of policy changes that resulted in doubling down on violent crime, and perhaps exacerbated racial disparities on the back end. So that's a kind of example of where we have to be thoughtful as mandatory minimums and other policies get rolled back about doing it in a way that is based on the evidence and that doesn't have unforeseen negative consequences.
So we have many more questions, but we also have hot pizza outside.
Oh, okay.
Population That's things that are reflected on my papers that go before the parole board instead of my physical presence. And also they take into consideration my age, the type of crime that I have, that I'm charged with, how many criminal offenses was I involved with, and what types of support systems or support mechanisms do I have in place for my hopeful reintegration back into society. So is there family who's willing to take me back in? Is there employment opportunity? Did I complete some of the mandatory programming within the facility, whether that's education, receive my general education diploma on Rikers Island, and then went upstate and started taking college classes. I also completed information and technology support, and then enrolled in a few volunteer programs, HIV peer education, the CDL training, and a few other, the paralegal course, which are not mandatory, but volunteer programs that kind of put you in a better position, so when you appear before a parole board, it shows that you took the initiative to not only do what was mandated and required of you, but also to step outside and do something that's also going to support your successful reintegration. So I just thought that was kind of helpful. I'll go through some of the mandatory programs. One of them, if you're convicted of a violent crime, you have to automatically take what they call ART, and that acronym stands for Aggression Replacement Training. It's kind of like a conflict resolution and anger management. If you were convicted or if your crime involved drugs, you didn't necessarily had to be under the influence when you committed the crime, but if your crime was possession of controlled substance or substance, you have to take what they call ASAC, and ASAC is Alcohol Substance Abuse Counseling, ASAC. And those are like some of the mandatory programs. If you don't have a high school equivalency diploma, you have to take this. They call it ABE, which is Adult Basic Education, and then from there you take the tests, and if you complete it, then you complete with school. They don't mandate you to enroll in higher education courses. They're not offered in all state prisons. There's about 40-something prisons in New York, and there's not higher education opportunities in all of those prisons. So is there any questions before I go any further around this?